Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Autoimmune Rehab. Today, boy, do we have a doozy for you. So we are going to be talking about all kinds of things. If you are one of those people that feels like you've tried everything and still can't heal, or maybe you've got multiple autoimmune conditions, you've either got or suspect you've got issues with mold, Lyme, the whole gamut, you name it, we are going to cover a lot of that stuff. So you'll want to stay tuned and listen all the way to the end, because my guest today, Bonnie Brown, and yes, ironically, we do have the same last name, is going to share with you a comprehensive test that will help you analyze and really get a hold of what's actually going on and the different solutions that you can take. So welcome to Autoimmune Rehab, Bonnie. Today, let's start by having you tell us, about the 60-second, minute or so pitch, a little bit, if you will, of who are you and why are you here?
Well, thank you for having me today. I'm excited to talk to you. I'm Bonnie Brown, no relation to Anna Laura Brown, but I love your name. And I am a board-certified patient advocate and a CellCore Biosciences practitioner. In a long and roundabout way, I ended up in the toxic molds and toxins and chemicals, and getting to the root cause of your issues, because I have been run over by the healthcare system. I spent 20 years taking people around and being very efficient and very good at navigating a traditional healthcare system that I found out could not diagnose nor treat my own conditions. So I spent 40 years, $400,000 out-of-pocket costs and $2 million in hospital claims, along with 17 surgeries, to find out that I had been misdiagnosed over and over and over again. So now I just help people not get run over by healthcare.
That's great. Yeah, that's amazing, because anybody that gets into their autoimmune journey, sooner or later, you become aware that our healthcare system doesn't really know how to deal with autoimmune conditions, and not effectively anyway.
Yeah, and it's really sad because I didn't connect the parts and pieces because I didn't know any better. And you take one thing, it's like, oh, I started off on the opposite end of you. I started off with Graves' disease, being overactive. And after a couple of years of medications, then they killed off my thyroid gland and I went underactive to Hashimoto's. And so it was like, oh, this is what I have. This is my disease. But I never said, but why? But why do I have that? I never knew it could be connected to anything else, and I never thought to ask.
Yeah, and that's a big one. And that's a big thing I advocate for and tell people, the number one question you should be asking after you get an autoimmune diagnosis is why? Why do I have this? Because there's a lot of different reasons why you might have it, and the why isn't necessarily the same for everybody. But I would say there's probably about, you could say anywhere from 6 to maybe on the high end, 12 really common reasons why you probably got your autoimmune. Yeah. So, there's not an endless number of reasons, but the reasons may not be necessarily the same for each individual person.
Absolutely. It's likely not to be. And it's like, we each are so different, but yet at the same point in time, if you go all the way back, it's like, what's the one thing, like what started, what was that first domino to fall to make everything else get out of alignment? And you usually can trace it back to one or a couple of things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like for me, I had some mercury fillings in my mouth that started leaking mercury. And I know for a fact that that was one of the things that started that domino, that started the trigger effect of my Hashimoto's and, some of the other things. So yeah, I mean.
That's quite common. That and dental cavitations are one of the things that are often missed.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, and that's another thing. That's a whole, almost another rabbit hole you could go down is, evaluating what's your dental history, and what's actually in your mouth, because even a lot of dentists, unfortunately, don't recognize the role that what's in your mouth plays in the rest of your health.
Yeah. I also had all of my fillings taken out, but at that time I didn't know about a biological dentist. So I had them drilled out and essentially swallowed the things that were already causing harm.
So, oh boy. Yeah. See, I did use a biological dentist. So fortunately for me, I knew enough to do that, and I didn't have that issue. And so then let's transition a little bit here. We mentioned the dental a little bit. Another one of the really common triggers for autoimmune and really even a lot of other chronic illness are things like mold and other environmental toxins. So why would you say that they often get missed in conventional healthcare?
Okay, so my brother is a physician's assistant and my sister a medical lab technician, and neither of them had ever been trained anything about mold or environmental toxins and chemicals and the role they play on the body. So it's just not something that's even being taught in school. And then on top of that, you add the fact that most likely 70% of all buildings contain mold of some sort. And then on top of that, you have people that have a genetic disposition. So I have something called the HLA-DR gene, which makes me more genetically susceptible, which means my body can't get it out on its own. I'm going to need some help. And so with all of that put together, we're exposed to it more and more and more. And our toxin bucket gets fuller and fuller. And then we get all of these symptoms. One of the crazy things I was looking through recently is you can have these symptoms that seem completely unrelated, like fatigue, headaches, decreased assimilation of knowledge, a cough, excessive thirst, confusion, shortness of breath, memory impairment, disorientation, metallic taste in the mouth, shocks, vertigo, like things like you would never think that they were connected, yet they're all connected to the mold illness. And so I had mold in my office building at work, and I nearly died from it. And I didn't realize that you literally can die from something like that. And unfortunately, they kept misdiagnosing it as something else. And because they never got to the root cause of the problem, and I didn't know any better, I went down this rabbit hole of supplements and medications and treatments and surgeries that just weren't even coming close to the problem.
Yeah, that's a really big issue. I was going to say, as you're reading off those list of symptoms, also makes me think of something like long haul COVID, or a lot of the symptoms that people experience with other autoimmune conditions. And you said it right there. You could still have the autoimmune as well, but yeah, that's all boils down to mold toxicity. Wow.
Yeah, and the mold will also create the Lyme disease co-infections as well. So, and that can also create the environment for the stomach to have leaky gut and be out of alignment. That creates for a lot of people parasites. And so everything, it just becomes one after another, and becomes more and more difficult to turn the body around and heal.
Yeah, that's tricky. Yeah, and like you said, the medical profession, they're not trained. And not only are they not trained, you think about in Western medicine, there's all these specialists for all these different things. And that really doesn't serve us. You look to Eastern medicine, like with acupuncture and some of the functional medicine, more holistic stuff, they actually train one doctor to be able to handle, a whole gamut of things and to look at the whole body, mind, and spirit, if you will. And that's not how Western medicine functions. And it's not serving us, we the people, for the benefit of our own health.
Well, we're raised to believe in a pill for any ill. Go to the doctor, get a pill, go home, and that's supposed to handle it. But those days are long over. And so for me, I ended up on a dozen medications or more, and probably another dozen supplements that just didn't work. And so even when I made my way to foundational medicine, functional medicine, it's still, there were a lot of products that didn't completely help me, like different binders, cholestyramine, activated charcoal, bentonite clay, chlorella. There are just so many things I tried, and they might have tamped the symptoms down, but they never got the mold out of my body. So it was only until I found CellCore Biosciences, and at that point I had nearly died. I had open heart surgery from a procedure that wasn't necessary because they misdiagnosed me. And I found a practitioner in Europe that helped me. And once I began to take their full comprehensive protocol, I got better and better and better. And then I got angry. Most people would be so excited that something saved them, but I was so confused at how it was even possible to fix my body at that point, because I had spent 40 years. Then I went down and I said, I want to deep dive into this. And that's when I became a practitioner. I found out that CellCore's products had a unique technology called bioactive carbon technology, which is essentially like it magnetizes the toxins together until they come out of the body. So then I learned what detoxification was all about. And then from there, I learned more about air purification and the importance of that. And I also learned about the importance of your diet. We've got 86,000 chemicals in our food, water, and air supply assaulting us every day. And they're hidden. We don't even know they're there. We don't even know they're affecting us. And it's like, we're helpless unless we begin to learn what we can do to be proactive about our health instead of being reactive. And I spent my whole life being reactive to what was going on around me and the difficulties I was having.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that's crazy. 86,000 chemicals. don't know if I was aware that it was that bad. Yeah, that's insane.
It is insane. And especially because if you think about it, even if you try and say, oh, I eat organic food or I'm a vegetarian. Well, at one point I went down that whole route and found out that I was eating things that were not okay for my body, because the beans and the rice and the nuts and the cheese, or all the things that I was eating at the time thinking they were healthy foods, may have been healthy for somebody else, but they were not healthy to me. And so again, we're back to each person is different. You've got to find the one thing that's going to work for you. But it really comes down to the whole body, right? It's mind, body, spirit, that whole thing, that it's all the areas of your life. I call them my ways to wellness, because you have to have them all in balance, like a wheel. You have to have everything supported so that you can totally heal from within and figure out, okay, what's wrong with you and what do I have to do to fix it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that most people make when they're trying to heal from an autoimmune condition or a chronic illness?
I think the biggest thing is that they think that they could just supplement their way to better health, and they do it without a system, without understanding the different products that are out there, or even taking them in the right order for the right reasons. That's one of the reasons that I settled on CellCore, because I found that they had a system and a drainage funnel. They start at the bottom of the body with the colon, and then they go to the liver and bile duct, and then the lymphatic system, and then the organs, and they work their way up. And they work on energy and drainage and gut and immune support and whole body support. And they do it in a way that's comprehensive, as opposed to going out and taking 10 things. Oh, geez, I think it would be good for me to have vitamin C and vitamin D and this and this and this. And they're all great, except for if they're not solving your problem and the things that you have wrong with you, then what good is it? So it's just like throwing good money after bad, because you're not doing it in the right order to solve the problem that you have currently.
Yeah,
So,
for sure, absolutely. Yeah, and I think the other issue that happens too is, and I've experienced this even with functional medicine practitioners, is a lot of them have like a certain protocol that they just throw the same one at everybody with an autoimmune condition, or they just really overload you with a lot of supplements, because I think that's how a lot of them make their money. And, there isn't necessarily, like you said, a specific system to address certain parts of the body.
yeah, I think the biggest thing is to find what your biggest offenders are and start there. There are a couple of base things I think everybody could benefit from, but beyond that, it has to be customized to your individual needs. And sometimes that's not so easy to figure out, but I think if you just get on the path of, okay, let's just take it step 1, step 2, step 3, and work your way through the process, it gets easier. And then you have to have a way to test and track for that. So I'm a scientific person. Good, better, best, better, worse, no change. Is it helping? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Are the numbers moving in the right direction for your labs? Are you starting to feel better? Taking a number of things without starting to feel better doesn't do anything for anyone. So you don't want to be spending tens of thousands of dollars on these supplements, which I have done, that didn't get me better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with you that that is a big mistake a lot of people end up with as well. Absolutely. So I know you talk about a 3 steps to success framework. So what tell us what this is, and how does this help people begin that journey and then continue that journey to getting their autoimmune into remission?
I think in the end, I had been through so much by the time I got through everything. And I sat back and I said, it really does come down to 3 simple things. 1, get you out of the toxins. 2, get the toxins out of you. And 3, work to keep your home and workspace safe. So when I say get you out of the toxins, well, I at the time was living and where I was working in a moldy building. And even though I had the sense, I knew there was mold in the building, and I did my best to remediate it myself, because it was still in the air conditioning system, I couldn't get it out. Now, I went down a rabbit hole and spent tens of thousands of dollars buying better air conditioning systems and infrared lighting and all of this. And little did I know that none of that mattered. It didn't solve the problem. Now, since then, I've come to discover high-tech air solutions and learned that there is an air purification system out there that will kill the mold, mycotoxins, contaminants, VOCs at the molecular level, which is kind of like a little Pac-Man going around and eating all the bad guys. right? As opposed to all the other air purifiers I've had in my life that just filter things through a filter and they don't necessarily solve the problem. So I wasn't even aware there was a solution to that problem. So on the thing, one thing is health begins at home, right? So if you start with the air that you breathe, which by the way, we breathe between 20 and 25,000 breaths a day. So how important is it to make sure each breath we take is safe? Or if you're not wanting to go that direction, then just get out of that mold. Rip out the walls that have the mold and at least stop the chimney in the factory that's creating the problem. And then when you go to the next step, so if you stop what's coming in that's assaulting you, the next step is, okay, now how do you take care of the drain that's already the toxins that are inside your body? So that's the next step, is to learn how to detoxify your body, which is where I go to the CellCore Biosciences. It's my favorite. The one product that specifically saved my life is called Carboxy. And I think everyone can benefit from two things, Carboxy and BCATP. The BCATP will fix the cells of your body and your body's energy and the mitochondria. And the Carboxy will grab those toxins and help pull them out of the body. So if you did nothing else, those two things would help. And then the final thing is work to keep your home and workspace safe. It's like you're always going to be on a learning journey. And as you age, your needs will change. It's not like you do this once and you forget about it. Like, we need to have better quality of water that we drink. So, you know, I'm a fan of distilled water, for example. So that's a simple thing that we can do, is a simple swap out to do that. Or again, the air purification in the home, or buying products that don't contain contaminants and eating food that's more healthy for us. It's an awareness of all the things we can do and all the swaps we can make, so that we are setting ourselves up for success and not failure.
Absolutely, that's a good point. Yeah, for sure. And I'm assuming that, if somebody is listening to this and they're thinking, well, okay, maybe there's, pretty sure, or maybe I've even tested it, I don't have the mold in my house, but what if I have it like at work? Are there solutions with like the air purifier things, you portable one you can bring with you and try to get it out of your office? Because I know a lot of people spend a lot of time at work in their offices, and that can become an issue. And for a lot of people, they just can't, or it's not practical to quit and go find another job.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? And yes, the answer is you can have your own portable unit. As a matter of fact, the one that I have now, I'll even take with me when I travel, because I often have gone to hotels that have mold in it, and within a few hours I'm reacting and need to leave. So yeah, it's something that you can do and take with you. Absolutely. And then the other part of it becomes, the more that you can get out of your body, the more exposure that you can have. So I found that my tolerance level over time is way higher, and I can be in an environment that has mold or contaminants, and I can be okay for a longer period of time. So I think it's all about, what's the toxin load in your body right now, and what can you do to keep bringing that down?
Absolutely, yeah, because like you said, it's like a lot of this stuff is environmental. It's not just, you can eat the organic food, you can get the clean skincare, you can avoid the toxins as much as you think you can, but at the end of the day, we're all exposed to something.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot you can do without it. I even have a client that was an organic farmer, and we were talking about, she lives in an area where they do spray, and there are sometimes, despite the fact that she's organic, she knew that the winds were blowing and they're blowing the toxins her way. And it's not like you can just stop and say, well, just stop right here because I've got an organic farm right here. So as much as we try, it's there. One of the things that I do is I also wash all my food when I get home. So I use baking soda and vinegar and water, and all my fruits, all my vegetables, they all get cleaned. So simple things like that. You can learn things that you can do that can help to bring that toxin load down.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So let's, on the track range of simple things, what's another simple thing that you feel you wish everyone would do to protect their health, especially when it comes to mold, toxins, and autoimmune? What would that be?
Well, I think, first of all, let's go back to the annual thing. I wish every single person and every single doctor would do an annual test called the visual contrast sensitivity test. It's a simple $15 online test that tests for the contrast sensitivity. Like, can you see the darkness and lightness of these lines on a screen? It is so accurate. in predicting whether or not there is mold currently in your body and like current exposure. So for $15 once a year, do that. Make sure that happens. Another simple swap out is your pillows, right? You're spending 8 hours a day, 7 hours a day breathing into them. Please get a new pillow. I try to do that once a year, once every 2 years. I put a simple allergy protectant cover on it as well. And I think that's super important. And then the other thing is the food and learning what foods are right for your body. Sometimes it's as simple as doing a food elimination diet, like pare it down to a few items and see how you do. Add some intermittent fasting in there. Make sure you're drinking distilled water. I love using exfoliating gloves in the shower to help open up the drainage pathways. So there's lots of simple things that aren't even expensive that you can do that can help improve your health.
That's awesome. Yeah, I never even heard of the BCS test, so I'm gonna definitely take that and see what kind of results I get. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah.
So it's at www.vcstest.com, and it'll give you a positive or negative. So positive means it's bad, negative is good. And then the other thing is you want to look at the biotoxin illness score and you want to compare. So it'll say you got 15 right out of 18 or 10 right out of 18. You want to know what that number is, how many you got over time. And then as you progress with your healing process, you can go back and retake the test every couple of months and see how are you doing. Are the scores improving? And if they're not improving, then you know you have bigger issues there. So it's a great way to do that. Same thing with, I'm going to offer everyone a free health assessment from CellCore Biosciences. I take that every 3 months. Even now, all these years later, I want to see what's going up and down. There's 21 different categories you can test, and I want to get a feel for what's happening because oftentimes I might not even think about things creeping up. And that's how I figured out that I was having more mold exposure in my home after I got better, moved out of my office, and everything was fine. I started to have little things that I didn't even recognize as being a problem. So it was like early prevention or early detection for me.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, so we will link to those in the resources as well because, I'm sure a lot of you are listening to this while you're driving, cleaning the house, whatever, so you'll want to go check the resources notes for the links so you don't have to worry about trying to write it down right now. We'll have it all there for you. We'll have the link to the assessment. We'll have the link to the BCS test. And then, of course, we'll link to some of the things that we've been talking with about the air purifiers as well and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about how is the high-tech air solutions different from your typical air purifiers? Just because I know that a lot of people, they may either have air purifiers or, there's a plethora of them available online. So let's talk about how are they different and what kinds of things should people look for with an air purifier?
I've owned probably 6 different brands of air purifiers over the years, and I thought it was about what it breaks down at what level, and I was more focused on the amount of volume of air it put through and the thickness or the what the filters could do. But with high-tech air solutions, it's the only air purifier that can destroy the mold and contaminants at a molecular level using something called PCO technology, photocatalytic technology. It creates something called super OH radicals, which is kind of getting out there in the scientific world. But the way that I describe it is it has little Pac-Mans that go out into the environment and can go 30 to 50 feet away, and they're carried by the air, and they literally chomp up all the bad toxins in the air. An air purifier will only suck in the air and put it through a filter 3 to 5 feet away. So if your mold exposure is in the bathroom and that's 50 feet away, it's not going to do anything to take the mold out of the air there or in the environment there. So that's the one thing that I learned about high-tech air. I got it, and within 24 hours, my son, who's had horrific allergies most of his life, and we're talking decades worth of allergy shots and pills and whatnot. And despite all the things that we've done with the diet and the bedding and all of that, within 24 hours of me getting it, his allergy attacks stopped. Now, the interesting thing is a week later, we had spring weather and we opened up the doors and the windows and it was just a beautiful day. And he started having an allergy attack that night and into the morning. I closed up the door and windows, and a day later, there was gone again. So I contacted the CEO of the company. We were having that conversation about it. And he said, "What, you think outside air is cleaner than inside air?" And I'm like, I did. Fresh air, how is fresh air not better? It's not necessarily better, and it's not necessarily better in my environment. So that's when I learned that it was different, and it's just not the same as all the others. So I'm new to this and just learning, but I can tell you that I started by hearing about it through other practitioners who they themselves were having success, and then they were working with their patients and their clients, and they were getting success. So now it's something that I've been searching for over 40 years, and I finally found it, and it's literally changed the way I think about my health and what needs to come first. So I would say, if you could do nothing else, get this. And the reason I say get this is because then it creates the safe haven in your home with which your body can then begin to heal itself naturally. So it'll stop the damage from what's going into your body. So I'm a big fan, and it's something that I know is going to be part of my future.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good role to play. But yeah, you're right. I mean, some of us, I guess, have a tendency to think that, oh, outdoors, it's fresh air, how can that not be better? But, well, hey, if my audience that's from Utah, where I live, that's listening to this, and I know I have quite a few people from Utah that listen, are probably laughing at that just because we are known for having the worst air quality in the country. So they probably are aware that outdoor air is not, better than indoor air. But I do think that is a myth and a fallacy that a lot of people have. So yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Opening up, letting too much outdoor air into your home is, you're bringing the toxins. I mean, if you live in an area, like you said, that organic farmer that lives in an area where there's sprays, potentially some of that residue's coming into your home through, your outdoor air. So yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of shocking to me. Even after all these years, I was just surprised to learn it. It really was a game changer for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're almost done here, but a couple more questions. So what would you say to someone listening right now who feels hopeless and like they've tried everything?
Don't ever give up. Never, never, never give up. I mean, I was on my deathbed and I just kept fighting. I mean, last rites twice. You don't get any sicker than that. There's a solution out there. Just keep going. Find somebody who's going through or have been through what you're going through and find a path forward. To me, it's what's the one thing you can do to make everything else easier or unnecessary, and go after that one thing. Because when you're super sick, and it's easy to have analysis paralysis, you get onto the internet and there's like a million directions you can go, and everybody's telling you their opinion and do this, do this, do this, and it makes it really difficult. So just find your anchor and find your people and just take one step in front of the other and the other, just one step. You were saying something on one of your podcasts about just breathe. I love that. It was like your step one, just take a breath and find your way forward.
Yeah, that's good for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we've covered the mind, body, spirit, and breathing, and the role that plays in a couple other interview episodes as well with people. So yeah, we've delved in quite a bit more to that in some other episodes that people can go check out. But yeah, that's a good point. I love it. So last question I always like to ask everybody, and I think I have some pretty good ideas about what you might say, but if you could go back in time to, let's say, about 40 years ago, or you spent these crazy amounts of money and medical bills and all these unnecessary surgeries and misdiagnosed and all this other stuff that you've been through, this garbage, we could say, what is one thing that you wish you had known then that you would tell yourself?
Well, I wish I had known that I should ask the question, but why?
Yeah.
And I think that you keep asking that question until you get to the answer and there are no more questions, right? So you say, but why? So I started off by, at that point in time, I had cytomegalovirus is the first thing, and then Epstein-Barr virus. But I never thought to ask, but why do I have that? And then, so when I trace it back, it all traced back to the mold illness. And why did I have that? Because I lived on the water. And why did I have that? Well, once I got the flu, I laid in bed and I was in the one room that was the darkest in the house. And why did I do that? So you just keep going back until you can put all the parts and pieces together. But and then I also didn't know to challenge my doctors and to ask them, but why? Because I didn't even know I should, because I trusted them, right? I sought out the best doctors in the world. And when they told me this was my problem, I accepted that at face value and went off and did what they said to do or took the medications they said. And I never trusted my instincts. So I think if I could go back and tell myself to keep asking, but why, that would be the one thing that would be super beneficial to me.
Yep, I can see that. Absolutely. Yeah. So let's challenge all of you that are listening to this to ask yourself why, and then why that, and keep going till you get your solutions. And then, of course, we're always so going to encourage you to check out the links below, check out the high-tech air solutions, and take that assessment that Bonnie, well, there's really two different ones. The $15 one we're talking about with the BCS test, go ahead and take that. And then check out the free solution assessment that she's offering, because it's free and if nothing else, you'll probably learn some things about what might be going on and get some ideas about what you could do.
And help.
Of course, beyond that, reach out to Bonnie if you really want to dig deeper.
Yeah, exactly. It'll at least put you for the next step, and maybe it'll help you get to the root cause of what's going on and help you point you in the right direction. So I'm here to help anytime I can.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Bonnie. Thanks for coming on.
It's great to see you. Take care.